Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today, I am going to be talking about how Donald Trump is probably in the best position in his entire political career to win the presidency. He has never been in as good of a position as well as this. Looking at the polls, looking at everything, looking at every single thing that Donald Trump has going wrong for him, which in turn kind of has it working out going in his favor. We just saw the Donald Trump conviction. He was found guilty of 34 felonies. I'm not exactly sure what those felonies were, but he was found guilty of 34 felonies in the state of New York. That has not moved the needle one iota. If anything, it has only created more enthusiasm in the Trump base. Donald Trump, since that trial, raised over $200 million in donations, over 70 million in small dollar donations. I believe he got $100 million check from one individual, one billionaire. Donald Trump has expanded. He has grown in support. People are even more enthusiastic to go out and vote for him because they believe that he is being politically targeted by the Democrats, by the Democrat Party. What we see in New York, both Democrats, you have not Fannie. Well, she's in Georgia. However, she is a Democrat as well. But you have Letitia James, who campaigned on going after Donald Trump. You have that iconic video of her saying, "Oh, we're going to go after him. We're going to do everything to him." Alvin Bragg, exact same thing. All Democrats. Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, Fannie Willis, Merrick Garland, all across this country. Merrick Garland obviously works for the Biden administration. He is the one who appointed Jack Smith as the prosecutor in the January 6th case. Democrats targeting Donald Trump. I believe that the majority of Americans see this as a political prosecution. They don't see this as, trying to uphold the rule of law. They see this as the Democrat Party, the DNC, whoever you want to say, is trying to prevent Donald Trump from winning this election. They're trying to make him look as bad as possible. But what you got to realize is that people have had 8 years, 9 years to look at Donald Trump and come up with an opinion of him. 9 years, we've been through 2 impeachments, indictments, investigations, allegations, accusations, all sorts of things that have been thrown at Donald Trump. Every single thing in the book has been thrown at Donald Trump. They have spaghetti at the wall, this and that. People have had time to come up with their opinions of him. And right now, if he's found guilty of a felony, if he's found guilty of whatever, sexually harassing, sexually assaulting Eugene Carroll, that's not going to change anybody's minds, but it's only going to make his base more enthusiastic. With that all being said, this video is me looking at this electoral map and getting Donald Trump and saying, in a best case scenario, how does Donald Trump get to 350 plus electoral votes? In my mind, in today's world, in the 2020s, getting over 350 electoral votes is a modern electoral landslide. That's looking like Bill Clinton numbers in the 90s, Obama numbers in 2008. We're not going to get 400 vote sweeps in the electoral college like what Reagan got, like what Nixon got, like what Franklin Roosevelt got. We're not going to see that in this century at this point in time. Maybe we'll see it in later elections to come, but because of the polarization of the country, you're not going to see it. So a modern landslide would be something where a candidate gets over 350 because most of the elections are not going to be going anything bigger than that in favor of somebody, unless if you get a once in a lifetime person that's just the most popular person in the world. We don't see that happening. So how does Donald Trump get to 350 electoral votes? Well, let's start off with what states would be safe for Donald Trump in a scenario where he wins 350 plus in a modern landslide. There's going to be a lot of safe states for Donald Trump. These are going to be including states like that were previously that were previously considered toss-up states, no longer now either considered likely or lean in favor of Trump. These would all shift to the safe category. Maine second, most recent poll out of Maine second has Donald Trump up 20 points in the district. He's won that district both elections by 10 or more against Biden and Clinton, as well as the state of Ohio and Iowa, which are now both pretty solidly in the Trump column. That brings him to 149 electoral votes. Ohio and Iowa used to relatively be pretty close toss-up states. Ohio, they say with Ohio, they said with it, so goes Ohio, so goes the nation. That really does not take much effect anymore because of the fact that Ohio has shifted so far into the Republican column. Most people believe, as do I, that Sherrod Brown will lose re-election in the state of Ohio. Previously, he's kind of one of the few Democrats that remain in those Republican states. That's going to end this cycle, really, with Joe Manchin retiring. Tester probably going to lose. Brown in Ohio. Ohio is going to go Republican. And if Donald Trump does win in a landslide, I don't want to call it a landslide because it's not really a landslide, a modern landslide. Ohio will be a safe state. That gets Trump to 149 electoral votes. I am leaving states still, like Texas and Florida, out of this for now. Looking at the safe Biden states, there's going to be few safe Biden states. You're going to get like the state of California. You're going to get the state of Hawaii. I'll give Biden the state of Oregon, Maryland, D.C., Delaware, Illinois, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine's first congressional district would all be safe in favor of Biden. However, states like New York, states like New Jersey, states like Washington, we have seen polls coming out of the state that have it in these states in the single digits. Polls out of New York, most recent poll out of the state of New York has it a 7 point game by the Hill and Emerson. Biden only leads by 7 points. Another poll in New York, the second most recent by Siena, has Biden only leading by 9 points. Look at the state of Washington. Most recent poll out of the state of Washington, Biden only leads by 8 points. And then finally, in the state of New Jersey, the most recent poll has Biden only leading by 7 points, conducted by the Hill and Emerson about 2 months ago. So when you look at those polls in states that are considered to be historically pretty solid for the Democrats, kind of getting close, getting closer. And you could argue that New York is a little bit closer now because of the fact that Trump has been in that state, kind of campaigning there, kind of going to bodegas, doing things there. Doesn't mean he's going to win this state. Now, I'm not going to have him win this state in this prediction. I'll already tell you that that's not going to happen. If he won those states, he would get 400 plus, but that's not going to happen. But you could see them narrow into that likely category. That means that they'll go to Biden by less than 10 points. You very well could see that happen in a scenario, as I'm saying, where Biden performs very badly across the country. Looking at likely Trump states, this is going to be the state of Texas, the state of Florida, the state of North Carolina. All of these get him to 235. A little explanation is needed. I think North Carolina, you see a lot of polls coming out of there where Trump is leading pretty comfortably. In 2016 and 2020, it was one of those toss-up states that Trump held on to. Um, Same with Florida. And I do think that in a scenario that he would, in this sort of scenario, Trump would get the state of North Carolina by a likely margin. However, I am not stopping with the state of North Carolina by a likely margin. Also, the state of Georgia would go to Donald Trump by a likely margin. He leads in most polls by 5 or more points. Um, that's coming with a massive shift in attitude among the African American community. Now, Donald Trump is not winning a majority of the African American votes. He's not even winning a quarter of the African American votes. He simply shifted. Previously, he got about 10% of African American support. Now he's at about 20. That 10 point shift in support is drastic. It is drastic. If Biden manages to only get 80% of the African American vote this election, he will lose. And that's what we're seeing in the polls. And that's why we're seeing Biden losing in all of the swing states. With Georgia, that statistic remains the same. That's why Georgia, Trump is leading very, very substantially. Trump also is performing better historically than he has ever, or most Republicans, with Hispanics. The same thing with the black community, as I like to go back to and say that if Donald Trump gets over 20%, 20 or over percent of the black vote, he would be doing better than any single Republican with black people in America since Richard Nixon in 1960, before the Civil Rights Act was passed into law. That is historic. And the Civil Rights Act was passed the same year that Lyndon Johnson ran for re-election, the next election cycle. So right before 1960. We haven't seen anything like that before, unprecedented. As well as the state of Nevada. Donald Trump leading very comfortably in the state of Nevada previously. Nevada went to Biden and Clinton in 2020 and in 2016. It went to Obama. The last time a Republican won it was 04. But now we're seeing a shift in the state of Nevada, especially among those Hispanics, and they're supporting Donald Trump. That's why Nevada, Trump leads in most polls by over 5 points. That's a state that he very likely could flip this coming election. And finally, state of Arizona. In this scenario, he would win the state of Arizona by a likely margin with those Hispanic support. Similar reasons for this as the state of Nevada. Heading into our likely Biden states, you get the state of Washington. Now you get the state of New York. You get the state of New Jersey. All of those would be likely in favor of President Biden, as well as actually there's not anything else that I'm going to add to that at this point. That gets him to 181 electoral votes. Donald Trump, of course, 2 electoral votes away. I already said he's going to win this prediction because of the fact that it's a best case scenario for him. But those states that would go in those single digits would be likely in favor of Biden. Now, looking at lean Trump states, you're going to give Donald Trump the Rust Belt. Donald Trump is, of course, going to have to win the Rust Belt if he's going to win this election. And the Rust Belt has all the polls in the Rust Belt in the aggregate have Donald Trump leading in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Previously, Donald Trump has been underestimated for the most part, especially this far out from the election in those states. In Wisconsin, especially, he's been underestimated by 6 points both times. Right now, he leads by 0.1 in the aggregate in RCP. If that same underestimation occurs, he'd win Wisconsin by a likely margin. Do I think he's going to win Wisconsin by a likely margin? Probably not, but he very likely is going to win that state, and very likely by a lean margin, anywhere from 1 to 5 percentage points. Another lean area is the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District. The only poll that has been released from Nebraska 2nd Congressional District has Donald Trump leading by 3 points. So now we have Donald Trump at 313 electoral votes. One more lean state. This would be the state of Minnesota. Donald Trump would have to win the state of Minnesota if he's going to get that far into this election. That gets Donald Trump to 323 electoral votes. Minnesota, you look at Muslim support. If that Muslim support starts to fracture for Biden over the Israel-Hamas conflict, that Benjamin Netanyahu said that Joe Biden's ceasefire deal was not what Israel agreed to. This is only exacerbating that conflict, that issue, that divide between the United States and the state of Israel. If Biden, if that issue continues and persists up until the election day, you could see a state like Minnesota go in favor of Trump. That gets Donald Trump to 323 electoral votes. Now, I'm going to move into some tilt Trump states. As I said, now we're trying to get Donald Trump to over 350 electoral votes. This is a modern landslide. How do you get there? Well, you get there with winning the state of Virginia. That state, right now, two most recent polls out of the state of Virginia by Roanoke College and now Fox News today has it at a dead tie. In 2020, Roanoke College had Joe Biden winning Virginia by 11 points. He only ended up winning by 9.5, but that is a relatively accurate pollster. And in addition, that poll overestimated Joe Biden's chances of winning in 2020 by 1.5 points. If that same overestimation occurs, Donald Trump wins the state of Virginia. Fox News also has it at a tie. Donald Trump has Glenn Youngkin's support. If Virginia goes, that would be by a tilt margin, and a very, very narrow margin for Donald Trump. But take a look at Virginia. Those most recent polls in the state of Virginia are something seriously to look at. Next up, Maine at-large district. The most recent poll out of Maine's at-large district is from Pan Atlantic, and it has Donald Trump winning by 6 points. I don't think Donald Trump is going to end up winning by 6 points, and this poll was conducted all the way back in February, but that is a massive swing from 2020. Joe Biden won by 8.7% in 2020. Donald Trump wins by 6 in the most recent poll from Pan Atlantic. Critical Insights has Biden leading by 1 point, and that was conducted even before that poll. So there's a lot to look at there. But when we look at the 2020 polls, Pan Atlantic was relatively accurate. In 2020, Pan Atlantic conducted a poll released from October the 2nd to October the 6th, and Joe Biden led in that poll by 10 points. Joe Biden ended up winning in Maine's at-large district by 8.7%. So this poll as well overestimated Joe Biden's chances of winning way back in 2020. Pan Atlantic right now has Donald Trump up 6 points. I'm not giving Donald Trump Maine's at-large district, or Maine at-large. I think it's not the at-large district, it's just Maine at-large. I'm not giving it to Donald Trump by a likely margin or even a lean margin, by a tilt margin, simply because of how much Biden won it before. In a scenario where Donald Trump performs extraordinarily well, he would still only win that by a tilt margin. Donald Trump would have to win the state of New Hampshire by a tilt margin. And I think you see where I'm going with this. We're going to have to give Donald Trump the remaining states, the state of New Mexico. However, I'd like to do a switch. If I'm going to get Donald Trump to 350 plus, I actually believe that it would be more likely to win the state of New Jersey and to win the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado has trended substantially to the left, substantially in favor of the Democrat Party. Now, I'm going to stop right here and say this is already a highly unlikely scenario, but I'd like to paint this picture for the people watching, because this is something that could happen if we remain on this trajectory going into the November 5th election day. Now, if the election were held today, I don't see this happening. But if Donald Trump continues to gain enthusiasm while Biden continues to lag behind, say Biden has a very poor debate performance, say the economy and inflation numbers continue to persist, say the immigration crisis continues to persist, the crisis at the southern border, a stark picture will be painted for Biden. Now, this simply was to show what Donald Trump would have to do to get 350 plus electoral votes in the Electoral College, a modern landslide. It's not my actual election prediction, but this is simply what Democrats could very well be looking down the barrel of come November 5th if they do not turn things around in the coming months. So I'd like to just characterize all of these states so you can see that pretty red across the country. Right now, I don't really see much of a scenario where Joe Biden can surpass 350 electoral votes. This is a stretch, but it is a very small possibility going into this election. 361 for Trump. Now, with this all being said, if you still manage to watch this video all the way to the end, this does not mean that Joe Biden cannot win this election. Joe Biden certainly can still win this election, and it is still very possible for him to. But a lot of things are going to start to have to go right for him in the upcoming months, and a lot of things are going to have to start to go wrong for Donald Trump. Now, they very well could, because this time period right before the elections, lots of crazy things happen. But we're gonna have to see a massive turnaround going forward, because right now Donald Trump has all of the momentum going into November, and I certainly believe that June 27th is not going to be a high point for the Biden campaign based off of everything that we've seen coming out of the campaign. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think, what would you have Donald Trump getting if he got 350 plus electoral votes? Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and have a good day.